Habits that feel completely normal to people living in Turkey, but can feel very different for someone from America. If you were born in America and grew up in American culture, then when you come to Turkey, you may notice some things that feel very surprising at first. You walk into a friend's house, and before you can even say hello, they ask you to take off your shoes. Then someone immediately brings you a pair of slippers. These are called guest slippers. Tea is always ready at home. You've barely even sat down on the couch, and somehow, the tea is already there. Everyone is drinking tea. You can't really leave the house without being offered tea. And maybe before you go, you'll drink a few more glasses too. There is always food as well. They don't always ask, "Do you want to eat?" Sometimes the food just appears, a lot of food appears, and after the meal, of course, tea comes again. Someone asks, "Are you married?" The others look at you with curiosity. In America, this kind of question might feel very personal. But in Turkey, it often comes from curiosity, warmth, and a desire to get to know you. Then someone else asks, "Why aren't you married?" They say they know someone who would be perfect for you. And somehow, in this house, you are visiting for the first time, with slippers on your feet and a tea glass in your hand after half an hour. You start to feel like one of them. Someone asks, "How are your mother and father?" And you don't even understand why they are asking about your family. A little girl looks at you and smiles. You smile back at her. An older man says, "Welcome to Turkey." Then he says, "Get our guest some tea." And then tea comes again. And honestly, you kind of like this feeling. Today, I am going to talk about the differences that feel completely normal to me now, but may seem interesting, surprising, or hard to understand at first for people from America when they come to Turkey. And yes, before anyone gets upset in the comments, I should say this first: different country, different culture. Of course, not every Turkish person does all of these things. There are many different lifestyles and cultures here. Turkey is a big country. The United States is a big country too. So, of course, different places have different people. But if you've spent some time in Turkey, you probably know exactly what I mean. So, let's begin. 1. In Turkey, tea is not just something you drink. It is a lifestyle. In America, many people drink a lot of coffee, but coffee in America is not the same as Turkish coffee. It's different. Coffee is everywhere. When people go to work, they have coffee in their hand. When they walk into a meeting, they have coffee with them. It can be sweetened or unsweetened, but coffee is always there when you are questioning your life. Coffee is with you. When you are walking, coffee is with you always. But in Turkey, tea is everywhere. Turkish tea is one of the unchanging truths of this country. If you go to a friend's house, there is tea. If you walk into a shop, tea is waiting for you. At work, tea greets you every morning. And in the evening, it is also the thing that sends you home. If you sit down for 2 minutes to have a conversation, tea joins you. You say, "No, thank you," but they'll probably keep offering until you finally say yes. In Turkey, tea is usually served in a small hourglass-shaped glass. They call it an ince belly glass, which means a thin-waisted glass. Many people say tea tastes better in that glass. They say it feels more enjoyable, especially when it has that rich deep red color Turkish people call Tavşan Kanı, a Turkish expression for perfectly brewed tea. Before the day is even halfway over, you may have already had several glasses without realizing it. Tea tricks you with how easy it is to drink. If you go to America one day and someone offers you tea, it usually feels more like a quiet, relaxing drink. But in Turkey, tea means so much more. It is the first step toward getting to know someone. It is part of every conversation. It can feel like a friend when you are alone. It is always around. And somehow, it always keeps you there a little longer. Tea is like a member of the family here. It does not need permission from anyone. And the best part is this. One day, you realize that tea has already made you love it. Tea is not just a passing phase. For many Turkish people, it is almost a cultural ceremony, and if you don't drink tea, don't worry, you'll probably get used to it too. You'll drink it, and then you'll leave like everyone else. That thin-waisted tea glass may even show up in your dreams. It will make you stare into the distance, and eventually, you'll accept it too. You'll say, tea really is indispensable. Congratulations, now you are one of us. 2. Shoes are usually taken off at the door. In many homes in Turkey, people do not walk around inside with outdoor shoes. I got used to it, and don't worry, you probably will too. As soon as you step inside, slippers are waiting for you. In America, this depends on the family. Some people take their shoes off at home. Some people don't in some homes. People walk around inside with the same shoes they wore outside. But in many Turkish homes, this is not really preferred. The thinking is usually very simple. You came from the street. There is dust outside. There is dirt outside. Do you really want to bring all of that into the house? So the reaction can be strong. And then, of course, you take your shoes off. They already give you slippers anyway, you put them on. Yes, those slippers I mentioned before. Guest slippers. In many Turkish homes, guest slippers wait near the entrance for whoever is coming over. There are usually slippers for men, women, and sometimes even children. Very small children may be the only ones who escape this rule. They are little. And so are their feet. If you are from America, this might even feel funny at first. If you've never experienced it before, you may feel confused for a minute. Should I take my shoes off? Wait, am I just supposed to walk around in my socks? And right at that moment, the guest slippers come to save you. For some reason, you may feel like you are entering a very clean, almost sacred space. But you get used to it. In Turkey, this is normal. And you follow the house rule. Also, guest slippers are always respectful to the guest. Eventually, you may even start judging the idea of walking around the house with outdoor shoes. Then you go back to America. You see your brother walking on the carpet with sneakers on. And suddenly, you remember the first pair of guest slippers you ever wore in Turkey, and you just swallow quietly. 3. Hospitality has real meaning in Turkey. It is not just a word, it is important. It comes with responsibility. Turkish hospitality is famous for a reason. When you are a guest in someone's home, you are treated as someone valuable. If you visit a Turkish home, the host usually makes it their personal mission to make you comfortable. They keep checking on you. They don't really leave you alone. They try. They insist. They care. No matter how many times you say you are full, the host will probably still offer you something to eat. And maybe you really are full. But at that point saying, I am full may not be enough. If you are a guest in a Turkish person's home and you don't eat what is offered, the host may feel a little sad. They may wonder, did I do something wrong? So you say, okay, and you eat at least a little. Then they say, have just a little more. In Turkey, hosts can be very persistent. They don't give up easily. In America, when someone says, no, thank you, it usually means, no, thank you. In Turkey, sometimes, no, thank you, can feel like the beginning of a negotiation. It can almost mean, ask me a few more times, and then maybe I'll say yes. This is often a way of showing love in Turkey. A Turkish mother, aunt or grandmother may not immediately believe someone who says they are full. Just saying, I am full is not always enough to convince them, but the real challenge comes after the meal. Fruit, apples are peeled, fruit is sliced. Someone says, at least have some fruit. The guest is asked, how many sugars do you want? Dessert is ready on the table, just in case. Then come nuts, more tea, maybe another small snack. And before you realize it, the night is almost over. But eventually, you get used to it. One day, you suddenly find yourself sitting on the couch, holding a tea glass, wearing comfortable clothes, feeling completely at home. At the end of the night, when you lie down, everything that happened comes back to your mind, and you smile. The next morning, before you even fully wake up, people may start arriving to meet the guest from another country. One by one, they come into the house. And once again, you hear the same sentence. You didn't eat anything. And just like that, the table adventure begins again. This is Turkish hospitality. Food is not just food. It is a way of showing care. It is a way of showing love. It is a way of saying, you are welcome here. Fourth, breakfast in Turkey is not just a meal. In many homes, it feels more like a shared family activity. In the US, breakfast is often much faster and more practical. Cereal, toast, eggs, coffee, maybe a bagel. And if someone is running late for work, breakfast might even be something they eat in the car. But in Turkey, breakfast has a very special place. In many families, it is the time in the morning when everyone sees each other, sits together, and starts the day around the same table. It can almost feel like a little festival. At a Turkish breakfast table, bread is usually essential. You will often see olives, cheese, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggs, honey, butter, clotted cream, jam, pastries, and of course, tea. And besides all of that, you may also find many other things on the table that you did not even realize could be considered breakfast food. That beautiful, colorful appetite, opening table can surprise you. So in many homes in Turkey, every morning can feel like a different breakfast universe. And weekend breakfast. Well, you really have to see it. Calling it just breakfast is not enough. Weekend breakfast tables can be even more impressive. It can feel like all the carbohydrates have gathered around the table and scheduled a 3-hour meeting with you. You sit down at 9 in the morning, and the food on the table is so delicious and inviting that you do not even realize how much time has passed. Suddenly, it is 3 in the afternoon. You have had 15 glasses of tea, and people are still asking, would you like a little more bread? And the answer is always, yes, I'll have a little more bread. One of the most beloved Turkish breakfast dishes is menemen. If you have never heard of it, it is a warm, soft Turkish-style egg dish made with tomatoes, green peppers, and eggs, usually cooked together in a pan and eaten with bread. Almost everyone in Turkey enjoys menemen, but whether onions belong in it or not is a surprisingly big discussion. Some people in Turkey say that when making menemen, you should not add onions. They believe the original version is made without onions. Some people add onions to menemen. Others say onions have no place in it. But honestly, it is more like a sweet little disagreement. It is not a serious national emotional crisis or anything like that. If you ever want to see people passionately defend their side in this warm and funny debate, just ask one simple question. Do you put onions in menemen? Then step back and just watch. Number 5. Personal space can also feel a little different in Turkey. In the US, personal space is usually pretty important. Many people are used to having a certain amount of distance when they talk to someone. And standing too close or having too much physical contact can feel a little uncomfortable. It is almost like everyone has an invisible personal bubble, and people usually try to respect that bubble. But in Turkey, that bubble can sometimes feel a little smaller, and without even realizing it, you may feel like someone is standing closer to you than you expected. When you see people talking to each other from a closer distance, it might surprise you at first. Even among friends, someone may touch your arm while telling you something. And if you are not used to that, it can feel a little unfamiliar. But in many cases, this is simply a warm and friendly gesture. It usually comes from sincerity and good intentions. Another thing that may feel unusual to you in Turkey is the way relatives or friends greet each other. When they meet, they may hug and give each other a light kiss on both cheeks. And when you ask someone for directions, the person explaining the way might step very close to you, almost like they are sharing top, secret information. For people from the US, these kinds of things can be surprising at first, but experiencing a different culture can also be exciting. When you meet a friend's family, they may treat you like part of the family very quickly. And suddenly, people you just met might greet you with a kiss on both cheeks. Like I said, this is usually just part of the warm, friendly, and sincere culture in Turkey. And in that moment, you might be thinking, should I kiss them on the cheek too? Am I supposed to hug them? Which side do I start from? Wait, am I part of the family now? But in Turkey, this is actually very normal. It is warmth, it is friendliness, and it is not meant to be strange at all. There is also another tradition. The hands of older family members, or elderly people, may be kissed. The reason behind this is respect. Younger people may kiss the hand of an older person and then bring it to their forehead. But this is not a strict obligation. It is simply one way of showing respect. People from the US may find this hand-kissing tradition very formal at first. But in Turkey, it is seen as a normal sign of respect. So yes, when people in Turkey greet each other, there may be a little more physical contact, and people may stand a little closer. If you are not prepared for that, it can feel a bit confusing at first. Sometimes, the easiest thing to do is simply follow what everyone else is doing, and then you will probably feel more comfortable too. Sixth, people in Turkey may ask personal questions a lot more directly than you might expect. For many people from the US, this can be genuinely surprising. In America, people are often very careful with personal questions. Many people avoid asking about someone's age, salary, rent, relationship status, or why they do not have children, especially when they have just met. Those kinds of questions can feel like they are crossing a personal boundary. So, how does this work in Turkey? Well, in Turkey, it is possible that someone you met 10 minutes ago, someone you have never seen before in your life, may suddenly start asking you personal questions. Are you married? No. What do you do for work? How much do you make? Do you own your home, or do you rent? How much is your rent? Is your salary enough? Do you want to get married? My neighbor has a daughter. At that point, you might feel like you accidentally walked into a marriage interview. But here is the important thing to understand. In many cases, these questions are not meant to be rude. People may simply be very curious, very talkative, or trying to get to know you. People in Turkey may ask things like, how old are you? After you pay rent, how much money do you have left? How much did your phone cost? Why do you not have children? Why are you so skinny? Did you gain weight? And yes, for someone from the US, these kinds of personal questions can feel like an interrogation. You might feel uncomfortable when someone asks such private questions so directly. But please remember, in Turkey, people often ask these questions because they are trying to know you better, or simply trying to keep the conversation going. So in Turkey, these questions are often just part of everyday conversation. Of course, that does not mean it always feels comfortable, especially if you are not used to it. It can feel very direct. But for many people in Turkey, these are just normal questions that come up during casual conversation. People are usually not asking because they want to be rude. In many cases, they are just curious, sincere, and trying to build a connection with you. For American people, this level of directness can feel uncomfortable. Someone from the US might think that is a very private question. But someone from Turkey might be thinking, we are getting to know each other. This is such a nice, friendly conversation. Like I said, Turkey has a different culture, and because of that, people may also have a different way of thinking about personal questions. Basically, the social rules can be different. So, if you are from the US and you are in Turkey, be ready for people to become curious about your life story during a simple conversation. And here is the comforting part. Most of the time, when people ask you these questions, they are not trying to judge you or make you uncomfortable. They are usually just trying to create a warm and sincere connection with you. Seventh, neighbor relationships are often very important in Turkey. In many parts of the United States, you might see neighbors waving at each other. You see them. They see you, someone says. "Hey, how's it going?" And then everyone goes back to their own life. But in many places in Turkey, there is something called neighborhood culture. Now, this is not the same in every neighborhood, and of course it depends on the city, the building, and the people. But in many cases, neighbors in Turkey can be much more involved in each other's lives than people from the US might be used to. For example, it is very normal for neighbors to bring each other food. If you need something, it can feel completely normal to ask your neighbor. And sometimes, before you even ask for anything, your neighbors may ask you if you need help. If you are sick, they may notice it very quickly. If they realize you are upset, they may come over and ask, "Are you okay? Did something happen? Do you want to talk a little?" Basically, they often make you feel like they are there for you. Your neighbors may also notice when you come home late, when someone visits you, or many little things like that. In many cases, neighbors in Turkey can be helpful, sweet, and sometimes very protective. Now, if you are from the US, you might think, "This is my private life, and nobody is paying attention to what I am doing." But in Turkey, that might not always be true. Because there is a good chance one of your neighbors will notice. In apartment buildings in Turkey, neighbors often share food with each other. If someone makes a pastry, or a dessert, they may send a plate to a neighbor. And there is a small cultural detail about that plate. If someone gives you a plate with food on it, traditionally, you are not expected to return the plate completely empty. When you give the plate back, you may put something inside it too. This is not a strict rule, and nobody is going to arrest you for returning an empty plate. It is more like an old neighborhood tradition, something many people learned from older generations. So, if someone gives you food on a plate, in many traditional settings, it is seen as nice to return that plate with something else on it. It is a kind of social etiquette in Turkey, and many neighbors still follow it because it has become part of the culture. Eighth, bargaining is a common habit in Turkey. In the US, prices are usually fixed. If the price tag says $20, then it really is $20. You usually do not walk up to the cashier and say, "Can you make it 15?" In many regular stores in America, trying to negotiate the price might feel unusual, or even uncomfortable. But in Turkey, the situation can be different. In some places, bargaining is completely normal, and some people actually enjoy it. But I should also say this very clearly, you cannot bargain everywhere in Turkey. Please do not go to a gas station or a supermarket and try to negotiate the price. That is not how it works. A simple way to explain it is this. In more local, traditional, or small business settings, bargaining may be possible. But in corporate stores, chain stores, supermarkets, and places with fixed prices, bargaining is usually not part of the experience. In bazaars, street markets, souvenir shops, and some small businesses, bargaining may be expected. For both the buyer and the seller, it can be a very normal part of the interaction. People from the US may feel a little uncomfortable with this at first. They might think, "If I bargain, am I being rude? Will they misunderstand me?" Do not worry. In the right setting, people usually will not think you are being rude just because you are bargaining. In fact, in some Turkish shopping environments, bargaining has become part of the experience, and it can actually be fun. The seller gives you a price. You hear the price, act surprised, and say it is way too high. The seller starts smiling. You say, "Why is it so expensive?" The seller says it is handmade. You say you saw the same product somewhere else for half the price, but you did not buy it. Then you say, "Never mind, that price is too much." The seller says their product is high quality. You start walking away, then the seller says, "Okay, since you came all this way," and lowers the price. You still say it is expensive, and your walking gets a little faster. Then the seller says, "Okay, let's do it your way. I will not even make a profit from you. Believe me, I am giving it to you at cost." You say thank you. At that point, you are no longer just shopping. You are in a performance. It is almost like theater. And when you finally buy the item, Both sides act like they lost. The seller says, "I gave you a very good price." You say, "I probably still paid too much." And honestly, maybe both are true, but even with all of that, the whole experience becomes a fun memory. Ninth, in Turkey, when someone gives you a time, things may not always happen exactly at that time. In many social situations, time can be a little more flexible in Turkey. Of course, this does not apply to every single person, and not everyone is comfortable with being late. But in everyday social life, many people are more used to a relaxed approach to time. In the United States, time is often more clearly defined. If someone gives you a specific time for something, you usually expect that thing to happen at that exact time. If you are told that something starts at 7, people generally expect it to start at 7. In Turkey, however, the timing can sometimes depend on the situation. And yes, of course, there are many situations in Turkey where time matters a lot. People are expected to be on time for things like work, school, flights, official appointments, and formal events. In those situations, flexibility with time can disappear very quickly. But in social life, there can be more room for flexibility, and people may be more understanding about it. So, time can feel a little more elastic. If someone says, "I'll be there in 5 minutes," it might really mean 5 minutes. It might also mean 15 minutes, or 20 minutes. Or it might mean something like, "I was planning to come. And I really was going to come at the time I told you. But then something happened." And then you may hear a whole explanation after that. This flexible approach to time can sometimes be frustrating for people from the US and American culture. Time is often treated like a schedule, but in social life in Turkey, time can sometimes turn into something more flexible, where plans can change, people can run late, and someone might say, "I am on my way," while they are still choosing what to wear. And yes, of course, people in America sometimes do this too, but in Turkey, there is often more of an understanding that social time can be flexible. So, keep this in mind. If you are from the US and someone in Turkey tells you, "I am almost there," before you get too excited, ask one important question. Have you left the house? That is the real question. Here is a quick recap of everything we've talked about so far. These are things that may feel completely normal in Turkey. But if someone from the US is visiting Turkey for the first time, they might find them funny, surprising, or even a little confusing. Drinking tea throughout the day, taking your shoes off at the door when you enter someone's home, being given guest slippers when you visit, the endless food offers, and hosts who genuinely want to make you feel comfortable. People asking personal questions, neighbors who somehow know everything, but are also often there when you need them. Bargaining that can feel almost like a little theater performance. And a sense of time that can sometimes be more flexible depending on the situation. After all of this, I understand something much better now. Culture shock is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it is funny. Sometimes it can feel uncomfortable. But once you get to know the culture better, that discomfort can turn into something warm, sweet, and sincere. The more time you spend in Turkey and around the culture, the more comfortable you may start to feel. That experience teaches you something. You become someone who has lived between two different cultures. And that is a real gain. In American culture, people often value privacy, independence, personal space, and clear boundaries. In Turkish culture, people often place a lot of value on hospitality, closeness, family, generosity, and community. One is not better than the other. They are just different. And sometimes, being different is a beautiful thing. Isn't that what makes learning about other cultures so interesting? Because the things that feel strange at first often start to make a lot more sense once you understand the meaning behind them. So, if you ever come to Turkey, and someone offers you tea, welcomes you into their home, asks if you are married, puts a hand on your shoulder while telling you a story, or sends you home with food, Don't be too surprised. That is hospitality. It is a warm and sincere way of connecting with people. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And tell me in the comments, which habit in Turkish culture do you think would surprise people from the US the most? Or, if you are Turkish, tell me, what did I miss? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.